Okay, thank you so much for helping me out, Olivia. For whoever is watching this video, Olivia is a undergrad student at the University of Northern Colorado, and she has been selected to be a research assistant for the department next semester. And we appreciate her help. And I think um, Olivia has been asked to help me with some literature review because I've been doing a lot. So I don't, how many hours did they say they gave you? Oh,
I think it's 10 hours a week.
okay, fantastic. I'm sure that's not all mine, so, but I appreciate any work you can help me with. So, because I needed to teach someone about ABA, and Olivia knows a little bit from what I understand.
No, not much.
Not much. Okay. Um, I'm going to tell you about my project and what I'd really like from you, and to tell you a little bit about ABA. So, here is what we're looking at. So, can you see, just to make sure, can you see my slides?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, okay, great, great. And thank you so much for taking some time to do this for me. I know this would have been a much easier just phone call, but I know
Yeah, of
that
course.
you're kind of on a break with your family, but I thank you. So what is ABA? So and I know that you know a little bit about ABA and you know Skinner and that kind of thing, but ABA is visually the science in which the principles of behavioral theory are applied systematically to improve socially significant behavior. Okay, so and it's based off the principles of B.F. Skinner,
Hmm.
um, and it's really it's a the idea that behavior is determined by its consequences. So whether those consequences are favorable for the individual, then um, the behavior they will most likely do again, and if the consequences are not favorable, then that behavior won't be reinforced. It will be punished, and the behavior will be less likely to be exhibited. So, what I'm looking for is based on the literature review I've already done. So I'm going to go a little bit over um, what I've already been researching. Um, so Skinner's principles have these found. They were built. Let me go back. Okay, so applied behavior analysis is built off of Skinner's first behavior principles, but they've been built up by other literature and research to so ABA isn't just Skinner. He's the foundation, but there are all these other studies that have built up. What am I trying to say? The theory of ABA and what we know about it and how we use it now. So, like the biggie, the dimensions of applied behavior analysis were Baer, Wolf, and Risley, and I'm just using that's the big one people usually think of. Um, but the one I really wanted to focus on is toward a functional behavior analysis of self-injury, and that was Iwata, first published in 1982 and republished in 84. And Iwata, um, this study was very important because prior to this study, um, how we dealt with behavior was really determined by the type of behavior. So if it was spitting, if that was the behavior that you're targeting, then there would be the spitting intervention. Or if slapping, there would be a slapping intervention. And so all the research was focused on interventions that were specific to the topography, or topography meaning like what the behavior looks like
Hmm.
to the individual. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So this particular study focused on not so much what the behavior was, but what the function of that behavior, what the purpose of that behavior was to the individual exhibiting it. So it doesn't actually matter what the behavior is, it matters what the function of the behavior is. So this was a huge hallmark study that really is ABA is built on the function of a behavior. And
Okay.
it really, it looked at the function of behavior, self-injurious behavior. And so it's not about what is the best intervention for the self-injurious behavior. It's what's the best intervention for that functional based interventions. And it's interesting, and that of the participants, I'm trying to move on. So this study says every behavior serves a purpose or a function, right? And so they've determined, and this was the first time that anyone had broken down the 4 functions of a behavior. Through this research, they determined that all behavior serves 4 functions. Sensory stimulation, so it's a sensory purpose. Escape, the individual is trying to escape from an expectation or task. Access to tangibles, the individual's trying to get something, like a child throwing a temper tantrum at Target because they want that candy bar at checkout. That's an access to tangibles. Or access to attention. So all behavior serves these 4 functions. What is interesting is that this study, the researchers could not find the function of a behavior of one of the participants, and he was deafblind. And kind of low, I mean, this is a huge study. Everyone working in behavior acknowledges it as the big one. But they couldn't find the function of the behavior of one of the participants, and they acknowledged it's kind of low in the fine print at the bottom of the, it's funny, at the bottom of the write-up, it says, we couldn't identify this individual's behavior, the function of their behavior. It's probably because they're blind. And when they listed the participant's characteristics, the individual is actually deafblind. It has significant vision loss. I think they said totally blind, and with a hearing deficit. So they specifically said they could not find his function because of his blindness, and for some reason that was it's been lost. No one's looked into that further. I cannot find any information about, can we reliably find the function of the behavior of individuals with significant sensory disabilities. And because I know that you're a little bit new to sensory disabilities and behavior, and please let me know if you already know this, but sensory disability is vision loss, hearing loss, deafblindness, and autism is an sensory processing disorder. It's not a sensory disability.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that, because when I asked you to do a literature review, we're not looking at individuals with autism. We're looking specifically for individuals with sensory disabilities, so vision loss, hearing loss, deafblindness. They can have autism as well, but we're looking specifically for those sensory disabilities. Okay, so another big study that was done was on the descriptive and experimental analysis and behaviors of maintaining self-injurious behavior. And so there's 2 different ways that you can find the function of a behavior, right? One is descriptive, and that's descriptive and experimental analysis. And when you do a descriptive assessment, you're looking at here, let me do my notes. So descriptive analysis looks at a correlational relationship. So that's like the ABC charts. I'm sure you've already filled out a ton of those in class.
Yeah.
Right. So you're looking at the antecedent, what happened right before the behavior, what the behavior is, and what the consequence of that behavior is. That's the correlational relationship of those variables. And so descriptive analysis is really what's happening at schools. It's easier to do. It's not as time consuming. A functional analysis is what was initially researchers were initially doing, and that is an experiment. It's experimental. And so that there's a hypothesis, right? So it actually takes descriptive to a next level. There's a hypothesis, and then the hypothesis must be tested. So that individual must exhibit that behavior again. It must be repeated in order to officially show what function is maintaining that behavior. Functional analysis tends to be more accurate, but it is time consuming, and it can't ethically be conducted on a lot of behaviors because the individual is being asked to conduct it again. So like if you have individual that's like slamming their head into pavement, you wouldn't want them to be like, let's see how many times they're going to do that, right? Right. You can't ethically do that. Although it tends to be more accurate because we're taking that one step further, and we're testing our hypothesis. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was really the ABA that I needed you to know, that there's a function of every behavior. So, and the example I gave earlier was the child that throws a temper tantrum at Target, just as you're checking out, because they want that candy bar, they want that candy bar, they want that candy bar. A descriptive analysis, we could look at that situation and go, okay, what happened right before? Well, the child, their grocery cart went past the candy bar. And then the kid threw a temper tantrum for the candy bar. And then mom is embarrassed, so mom gives him the candy bar, reinforcing the I will throw a temper tantrum and she will get me the candy bar. Right? So that is, we're looking at the correlational relationship, whereas with a functional analysis, it's much more experimental, and they would set up that situation for that child to throw that temper tantrum to make sure that it is access to tangibles that is maintaining that behavior. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're looking for, because Berman and Iwata is another big one in behavior. So anytime you say Iwata, if you're looking for behavior and you find something with Iwata, that would be brownie points. So in this study, Berman and Iwata looked at whether descriptive and experimental analysis really came up with determined the same function. Were they what am I trying to say? They yielded similar results, right? Are both accurate? And again, they found that yes, descriptive is as accurate as experimental analysis, except for the participant who was deafblind. And it was interesting because I know I only have a few more minutes, but it's interesting because the researchers said they had difficulty finding the function of the behavior because they couldn't understand his environmental variables. The way this participant experienced his life and his environment was so grossly different than the people that were assessing him that they really needed to take it one step further and do that experimental analysis to make sure that the function that they determined, was accurate. Because descriptive analysis just wasn't working. So for the literature review, I'm asking you to look at, we are looking specifically for individuals who have sensory disabilities and have had a functional behavior assessment conducted, whether it is descriptive or experimental. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we're looking at, let me see, I have a list of keywords here. We're looking for blind